Hey guys, so this video is about properties of exponents. 4.1 and 4.2 are both properties. There's 6 of them, so they just split it into 2 sections to make it a little bit more manageable. So this is kind of a part 1. So exponents. So exponents are these little numbers, that we've seen a bunch. And what they mean is it's a power. It's saying how many times this 3 is going to be multiplied. So if I have something like 3 squared, it's the same thing as 3 times 3. The base is the number that's being raised, so in that case this would be 3. The exponent is the power up there, so that would be 2. And then it'll ask what's the value of this, and that will be 9. So 3 times 3 for 9. Same thing here. This one is, this is a little bit tricky, these two. So this one I think is the easier one to see, so I'll start here and kind of back up to there. So this is -3 times -3. So because the square is saying whatever's in these parentheses just happens twice. So that one, the base is -3 and the exponent is 2. And then -3 times -3, there's 2 negative signs, so that's going to make this a +9. Up here though, the 2 isn't affected, the negative isn't affected by the square up here. This is the same thing as -1 times 3 times 3. So there's like a little invisible -1 there, and because PEMDAS, we got exponents be multiplying, we multiply the 3's first and then change the sign. So this one, the base is actually +3, and then the exponent was still 2, but this time it's -9 because the negative wasn't affected by the square. So these next 3 would be ones I'd have you guys try in class. So this is the one that's like this, where the negative isn't affected. So this is going to be a -16, because if you had 1, 2, 3, 4 2's, that would be 4 and 4 for 16, with that little -1 out front. This one is for -2's, so I have an even number of negative signs, so it'll be a positive. So that'd be 16. And then this one is just to kind of show, this is the same thing as 2 cubed over 3 cubed. And so you can just think of this as like 2/3, 2/3, 2/3, or 2 cubed, 3 cubed. So that will be 8 over 27. Okay, so now we kind of get the first of the properties of exponents. And so this first one is when we're multiplying exponents, we add them. The reason for that is if I think of something like x squared, times x cubed, this would be x times x, and then this one would be x times x times x. And if you count those, that would be x to the 5th, which is the same thing as saying 2 plus 3 makes 5. And so when we're multiplying, even though it's going to be counterintuitive, you're going to want to multiply the exponents because you're multiplying, but when we multiply, we add. So then that gets mixed up with the second property over here, which is the one when we're raising something to a power. So for this, think of if we had x squared cubed. So that means I have 3 x squareds. So it would look like x squared, x squared, x squared. And then if you count those up, that'd be 2, 4, 6 x's, so x to the 6th. So when we raise to power, we just do 3 times 2, and we get 6. This one basically just says if I have more than one thing in the parenthesis, then both of those things get the power. And then the other thing is there's these invisible ones here. And so this is like x times 1, which is how it becomes x to the, or a to the x, and x times 1 here on the b for b to the x. So it's kind of using this property, but with these little invisible ones. Okay, so these are the ones I would do on the board. So this one is all multiplying, and so that's like this, which means we just have to add our exponents. The one little bit of sneakiness here is right there, there's an invisible one, because remember, plain x is the same thing as x to the 1st. So then if we add these up, that's going to be 12 and 12 would be 24, and 6 I think would be 28. So x to the 28th if I add those. Actually, wait a second, 12 and 12, 6, sorry, 30. Just checked my math. Bad arithmetic. X to the 30th. For number 8, that's just like property 2, so we're just 4 sets of 3, which would be 12, so you can just multiply there and get x to the 12th. Here, a lot of times the really common answer is 2x to the 15th, and that's not quite right because of the invisible 1 up here on this 2. And so often students forget to do the number. They get kind of wrapped up in the letter and forget to do the number out front. So this would really be 2 to the 5th, and then for 5 times 1, 5 times 3 will make x to the 15th. And then if you do out 2 to the 5th, that will be 32x to the 15th. On your calculator, if you haven't found this button yet, there's very likely a button that is either a caret, would be one choice. Sometimes it's exp for exponentiate. Sometimes it is y to the x or x to the y. But if you look for that button and go to whatever it is, say caret, if it's a Texas Instrument, it's usually this, to the 5th, it will tell you it's 32. So you don't have to go 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, because that's a drag. So look for that button on your calculator if you haven't already found it. Okay, these next 3 I would have you try. And on this one I slipped in an extra letter. So we have x's and y's. So careful that is a y to the 1st. You'll never see the 1 written there, it's just implied, so you just kind of have to know that. So putting my x's together, 2 plus 6 will give me x to the 8th. And then with the y's, I got 1 plus 8, so it'll be y to the 9th. For number 11, we are squaring this. So you can think of it as, just this thing times itself, which to me, if I think it out that way, helps me see I have 2 negative signs. So that's going to be a positive 25. I think that's easier than trying to write it all formal as negative 5 quantity squared. And then 2 times 6, I'm not sure if my phone's picking up my cat, but she's howling in the background. So 2 times 6 is x to the 12th. This one, so 10, this would be like 10x times 10x. So 10 squared is going to be 100. And then x, so that is to the 1st, and then 2 times 1 is going to make squared. Next round would be me doing them. They're same ideas, same properties, just maybe a little bit bigger problem. So here we have, these are to the 1st, so that would be like 3 squared, x squared, and this one would be 3 cubed, and then 3 times 2, so x to the 6th. And then I'll kind of clean all this up a little bit. So this would be 9x squared times 27x to the 6th. And then 9 times 27 is 243. And then I have 2 x's here, 6 here. So now we're multiplying because they're in a line. We're not raising to a power. So we're adding, and that makes x to the 8th. Number 14, so we're squaring a negative, so it will be a positive because that negative is in the parentheses. So I can just think of this as 5 times 5 for 25, and 3 times 3 for 9. And then x cubed squared, 2 times 3, x to the 6th. Careful not to get x to the 9th there. A lot of times you think 3 and then squared, and then mistakenly get a 9. Number 15, so it's just numbers, and then like letters. So 5 times 7 would be 35. I have 2 x's here, 1 here, so that would give me x cubed altogether. I'll go alphabetical, so I'll do the y cubed next. And then I have 4 z's here and 1 there, so that's 5 altogether. And then these last 6 are the ones that have you try. So this is going to be like 4 to the 1, so 3 times 1 would make 4 to the 3rd, and 4 to the 3rd is going to be 64. And then these are all just, again, a bunch of invisible 1s, so 3 times 1, 3 times 1, 3 times 1. So a cubed, b cubed, c cubed. And also you can just think of it as if you had 3 of these things sitting next to each other, you'd have 3 a's, 3 b's, 3 c's. So that's what we're seeing there. Here I would multiply because we're raising to a power, so that's property 2. That'll make x to the 8th. And then here 5 times 4, that'll be x to the 20th. And now we're multiplying, so that means we add. So that's going to make that x to the 28th. This one, so don't forget the number in front, so that would be 7 squared, which is 49. 8 times 2, x to the 16, and 5 times 2, and then y to the 10th. This is so 4 times. So if you think of 1/3 4 times, you're just going to have 1 times 1 times 1 times 1, so that's just 1. And then 3 to the 4th would be 81. And then 4 times 3, that'll be x to the 12th, and 4 times 6 will be y to the 24th. This one's kind of like that, but a little more complicated with those numbers in front. So this is going to go 2, and then it'll be squared, so I'm just going to write that as a 4. And then x, so that'll be 5 times 2 for 10. And so now I'm kind of at that multiply. And this would be 2 times 1, so 3 squared, so 9. And then 2 times 4 for x to the 8th. And then we still have numbers and letters and, kind of strewn out, so we got to keep going and do 4 times 9 for 36. And then 10 and 8 would give me 18 x's. And then this last one, 3 times 7, 21. X squared there, x there, so that's going to be an x cubed. 4y's here, 3y's there, so y to the 7th. And then that's my only z's, so z to the 5th.